When I say journeyman or bridge quarterback, the first name that might come to mind is Ryan Fitzpatrick, which is completely fair. He is someone who comes to mind for me as well. But what if I were to tell you there is a different bridge quarterback who arguably could be the best bridge quarterback the NFL has seen to this date? This is a man who is top 40 all time in the passing yards leaderboards. This is a man who is ahead of Bob Greasy and Ken Stabler, Bobby Lane, and other legendary quarterbacks in the passing touchdowns leaderboard. And someone who is ahead of Jerry Rice in the 1990 MVP voting, getting 3 votes. This is none other than what some people also say is the best play action quarterback of all time, Steve DeBerg. DeBerg started his collegiate career with Fullerton College in 1973, where he would win a South Coast Conference championship, be 10-1 that season, and be named a junior college All-American. He would use this season to transfer to San Jose State, where he would have to wait a few years but finally got his start in 1976. That season, they won the Pacific Coast Athletic Association, where he threw for 2,084 yards, 19 touchdowns, 6 interceptions on 53.8% completion, and this season would also name him Conference Player of the Year. Performance allowed Steve DeBerg to be selected 275th overall in the 1977 NFL Draft to the Dallas Cowboys in the 10th round. And yes, the NFL Draft used to have more than 7 rounds in it. His Cowboys tenure wouldn't last long, as he would lose the backup quarterback battle to fellow 1977 draftee Glenn Carano. He'd be picked up by San Francisco and placed on their practice squad, where in 1978 he would be named the starter, and not much necessarily happened in that season. The 1979 season was Bill Walsh's first season as head coach in San Francisco, and thus DeBerg was the guy to implement the West Coast offense with Bill Walsh in the NFL. Although that season didn't go necessarily incredible, DeBerg was 2-13 that season as a starter. He did lead the league in both completions and pass attempts, while throwing for 17 touchdowns and 21 interceptions. In the 1980 NFL Draft, the San Francisco 49ers would select Joe Montana out of Notre Dame in the 3rd round, and the following offseason in 1981, Steve DeBerg would be off to Denver in a trade. DeBerg's Denver tenure is kind of a mixed bag. He started 11 games between 1981 and 1983. He would go 5 for 6, throwing for 22 touchdowns and 24 interceptions. But the highlight is that 1983 season. He started in 5 games, going 4 for 1 with a league lead in 4 game-winning drives, and it helped Denver make the playoffs that year. But he can only do so much, as in that offseason, he would be shipped off to Tampa thanks to the arrival of John Elway to Denver. DeBerg started both the 1984 and 85 seasons for Tampa. He would go 5-8 and 1 for 10 respectively in those seasons, while somehow throwing for 19 touchdowns and 18 interceptions in both seasons. I really don't know how he did it. I've never seen that before, so I feel like I should mention it. The 1986 season, he would be named the starter once again, but after an 0-2 start to the season, including a loss to San Francisco where he threw for 7 interceptions, the reins to the team would be given to former first overall pick in the NFL supplemental draft, Steve Young. And Steve Young would play out the rest of the season. He didn't play the greatest and would be shipped off to San Francisco right after the season. DeBerg would be given another shot at the starting job in Tampa in 1987, but after a 2-6 start to the season, he would be benched once again. This time for first overall pick in the 1987 NFL draft, Vinny Testaverde. And this would be the last straw for DeBerg in Tampa, as after the season, he would be traded to Kansas City. DeBerg's prime was in Kansas City, although the 88 season was a little rocky with him going 4-8-1 as a starter. It was in 1989 where he saw the improvement when they brought in Marty Schottenheimer to be the head coach, with him going 6-4 in 10 games in 1989. The 1990 season was his best season, throwing for 3,444 passing yards on 23 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, while leading Kansas City to an 11-5 record. This season saw him placing 5th in MVP voting, right ahead of Jerry Rice and right behind Bruce Smith. The 91 season saw a little bit of a decline, with him throwing for just shy of 3,000 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions, but he still led Kansas City to the divisional round of the playoffs and a 10-5 record with him as the starter. After that season, he would leave for Tampa, where he would spend a season and a half before being released. Just because he was released didn't mean his season was over. The Dolphins picked him up after an injury befell Dan Marino. DeBerg would start 4 games for the team, going 2 for 2, including picking up the win against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. Yes, Steve DeBerg was the starting quarterback for the Leon Lett game. He threw for 287 yards and 2 interceptions, but Miami still got the win nonetheless. After the season, though, Steve DeBerg would hang it up and retire. He would eventually become the quarterbacks coach for the New York Giants in 1995, and then in 1998, he would become the backup quarterback to Chris Chandler in the Atlanta Falcons. This allowed him to become the oldest player to appear on a Super Bowl roster at age 44 since the Falcons made Super Bowl 33. After that Super Bowl, he would retire a second time, and this time for good playing wise. He would eventually get back into coaching with the Arena Football League and the Indiana Firebirds, where he would go over 5 before hanging up football for good. LA Times coined the nickname Steve the Backup for him, but if you ask Bruce Arians, there's a different legacy they should be looking at. Bruce Arians was the running backs coach in Kansas City during DeBerg's tenure there. And when Arians got a job in Indianapolis with a young Peyton Manning, he used Steve DeBerg's film to teach Peyton Manning how to play action. During DeBerg's 17 seasons in the NFL, he racked up 196 touchdowns, 204 interceptions, 34,241 passing yards on 57.2% completion, 19 fourth quarter comebacks, and 24 game-winning drives. If there is anyone who should be on the Mount Rushmore of journeyman quarterbacks and bridge quarterbacks, Steve DeBerg should be front and center out of them all. With that being said, thank you all for watching. Have yourselves a damn good one, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.